We have all experienced gas and bloating at one time or another. Bloating is obviously that uncomfortable sensation of experiencing distension or trapped wind. Estimates suggest that anywhere from a fifth to a third of people routinely experience bloating, and while occasional bloating is usually short-lived, there are those who experience bloating of a chronic nature, and this can severely impact on their quality of life. So in today's video, we discuss 10 easy ways to relieve stomach bloating. Roll the titles.
For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we jump into the video, just a quick reminder as always that I'm now offering the organic acid stool test, SIBO test and consult via my website. So if you have any health or digestive problems, then consider taking these tests, as they will provide a lot of very detailed information upon which you can start making informed decisions and then start getting your health back on track. And on that bombshell, to the video. Number one is that you need to identify the root cause of your problems. Now, as obvious as this sounds, I can't tell you how many people overlook this and either try and ignore the problem until it gets too bad, or they start following extreme dietary patterns or start taking weird supplements. Gas and bloating can be caused by issues with the stomach, the pancreas, the gallbladder, and also with infections in the gut, such as small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or from a lack of diversity of bacteria in your colon. You may have heard me say many times that you need upwards of 600 to 1,000 different bacterial species in the colon, and a lack of diversity can cause all manner of issues from gas and bloating and also constipation. So first and foremost, if you have consistent bloating, don't ignore it. Work with someone, look at doing some testing and figure out where your problems originate from before your digestive issues potentially get much worse. Number two is that you need to move your body. If you are someone who is very sedentary, then you are much more susceptible to developing digestive issues such as gas and bloating. There are obviously many studies in the literature that show the benefits of exercise, but not many people connect these benefits to overall improved digestive health. Many health organisations around the world advocate 10 to 15 minute walks after meals to kickstart digestion if you are someone who consistently experiences bloating. I suspect one of the main reasons why exercise is so good for alleviating gas and bloating in some is that it helps reduce stress, and it can also help improve your mood. And if you are chronically stressed or chronically anxious or have a low mood, then just think about the consistent effect that all of this will have on your digestive system. The consistent flow of stress hormones in the gut is going to do you no favours, so keep yourself active. Number three is chewing your food properly. Now, I've made a video specifically on this topic a couple of weeks ago, so check that out if you haven't already done so. But if you are someone who eats food like it is going out of fashion, then this can cause more undigested foods to hit your small intestines and also your colon, which can then trigger excessive fermentation, which ultimately leads to increased gas and bloating. Eating too fast for some people can also cause them to swallow a lot more air that can become trapped air pockets within the gut that can further exacerbate the issues that you are experiencing. Number four is that I would recommend that you regularly consume probiotic rich foods. On your car, you would regularly change your oil to keep the engine in optimal condition, and you need to view eating fermented foods this way. Like I said before, if you don't have a diverse range of bacteria in the colon, then anytime fibre or carbohydrates hit the colon, they won't be fermented correctly, and then this can lead to not only increased gas and bloating, but also a slowing down of your transit times. If your food and feces travels too slowly through the colon, not only will it cause increased gas and bloating, but in many people it will also lead to chronic constipation. By regularly consuming fermented foods, you will help keep the diversity of bacteria high, and it will keep your digestive tract ticking over at an optimal level. And I would recommend a couple of portions of fermented foods each week. So that can be things like sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, kombucha, and so on. And by a portion, I mean a couple of large tablespoons of fermented foods, and you also need to ensure the fermented foods are raw and unpasteurized, because if they've been pasteurized, then they've been heated and the beneficial bacteria will have been removed. Number 5 is making sure that you are having regular and consistent bowel movements. The average person will have 1 to 3 bowel movements per day, and just because you are having this frequency, it doesn't necessarily mean that things are normal. I speak to many people each month who may be having 1 to 3 bowel movements per day, but they never feel that they are fully evacuating correctly. And often this can be resolved by making simple changes. Reducing the amount of alcohol that is being consumed, removing the amount of processed refined foods in your diet, and the most obvious one, to ensure that you are getting at least 35 grams of fibre in your diet each day. The other thing that often gets overlooked is hydration. Many people may be doing all of the right things in terms of diet and fibre, but they may not be taking on sufficient fluids and they may be chronically dehydrated. Number 6 is that if you are noticing consistent bloating from eating fruit, then you may want to get tested for fructose intolerance. Estimates suggest that approximately 1 in 20 to 30,000 people may experience hereditary fructose intolerance. Now, this sounds fairly low, and it is, but when you think about this at a population level, it tends to affect 5 to 10,000 people a year in somewhere like the UK. Fructose intolerance is the inability to digest fructose in fruit due to an enzyme deficiency in enzyme 1-fructose 1-phosphate additives. So if it's abundantly clear when you're eating fruit you are experiencing a lot of gas and bloating, then get tested to see if you have this problem. Number 7 is that you have issues with your stomach acid. So if the pH of your stomach acid is not low enough, then when you eat food, it won't be liquefied correctly. And then when the food leaves the stomach, you are potentially getting a lot more undigested foods hitting your small intestines and colon, which can then cause increased gas. Obvious symptoms to look for to spot if you have issues with stomach acid are not only gas and bloating, but also a loss of acid reflux in indigestion. For many people, a quick experiment of taking 650 mg of hydrochloric acid 15 to 20 minutes before each meal will give you a clear indication within a day or so whether you have an issue with your stomach acid. If it becomes clear that parts or all of your issues are coming from stomach acid issues, then please don't become hooked on hydrochloric acid to mask your problems. Work with someone to find the root cause of your problems so that the stomach acid issue doesn't end up causing issues further down your digestive tract while you are being propped up with hydrochloric acid and other supplements. Number 8, and this is another obvious one, in that you need to limit or avoid the more processed refined foods in your diet. Often I speak to people and they will say, I'm getting a lot of gas and bloating, but I eat a healthy, balanced diet. Then when I sit down with them and take a look at their diet, there may be a lot of carbonated beverages, artificial sweeteners, and processed refined foods and also sugars that contain a lot of additives and preservatives. Depending on your medical history and use of things like antibiotics, some people's tolerances to processed refined foods becomes somewhat diminished. Now, I would obviously always recommend limiting processed refined foods where possible in your diet, but you have to be honest with yourself. If a particular food is causing you a lot of problems, then don't just keep it in your diet just for the 2 seconds of pleasure that you get from eating it. Number 9 is to cut down on the amount of salt in your diet. Now, often salt can creep into the diet from many different sources, especially if you are buying ready-made meals from the supermarket, even if you believe them to be healthier choices. When some people eat foods containing more salt, it can cause their bodies to hold on to more fluids, particularly around their gut. Believe it or not, just a simple change of reducing a person's salt intake is often enough to help the person feel considerably less bloated. Number 10 is another obvious one that many people overlook. That is that you need to look at the supplements that you are taking. For many people, protein powders, iron supplements, and a whole host of other supplements can cause a direct impact on the speed at which your food and feces is traveling through your gut, which ultimately again can lead to increased gas and bloating. Often these supplements are produced in incorrect ways, or the supplements may contain additives and preservatives, fillers or binders that for many people can trigger digestive issues. There are also many different medications that can trigger gas and bloating that the person may not necessarily correlate the issue with. So if you think there may be a connection here, then speak to your doctor. Ultimately, whatever the cause of your gas and bloating, don't leave it or mask it with digestive support supplements. You may just be kicking a much bigger problem into your future. So that's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to check out this one up here because I'm sure you'll find it equally interesting. And the only other thing that's left for me to say is to remember to look after your body because it's the only place you have to live. And I'll see you next time.